Well, that was it. That was it, right? Two-match test series between the top two test teams in the world, New Zealand and India, ended with India winning the final test and clinching the series 1-0 at home. This is Cricket News Live. I am Rahul Pandey and I'm joined by Abhishek Mukherjee and Heinrich Malan. Hello, gents. How's the mood after that test match? Yes, we're going to refer to this as that test match, probably in the decades to come as well.
Heinrich?
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, I think I was just holding back there, just like the New Zealand guys. Was hoping for a bit of cricket at this stage on the telly, but look, I guess as expected, the surface sort of produced that real ragger that we were always expecting from a surface point of view, and obviously the New Zealand players found it from a batting point of view, they found it pretty tough. And then there was this left arm spinner who obviously had a feast of it. So I guess it would have been great to see us play and compete for 5 days as we did in that first test. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case. And there's a little bit of head scratching going around, I guess. Not the first team to go there and have some head scratches on their return home. And probably won't be the last, as we referenced before the series started.
Yeah. Well, Abhishek, we have a lot to talk about in this particular test match itself, let alone the series. But from a general point of view of two teams competing, how did you feel when you watched the result unfold on day 4 early in that first session?
The match was over by the second afternoon when New Zealand were bowled out for 62. I mean, there was nothing left in the match after that. So India could have enforced the follow-on and probably won inside 3 days. The decision to bat again pushed the match to the 4th day. That after that collapse, there was nothing left. That was what I felt.
Pretty serious though. 29 overs where India pulled out New Zealand on day 2. But let's talk about something exceptional that we saw on day 2 that I watched for the first time in my life. Yes, was too young to watch Anil Kumble do that at Feroz Shah Kotla. But let's talk about what Ajaz Patel did at Wankhede Stadium, picking a 10 for. What a magnificent achievement. This is one that, we wouldn't probably relate to a match which the team lost. I mean, a player picking a 10 for and then the team losing. It's something that I don't believe is going to be broken in the years to come. But it was something exceptional to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was like those, have you done school projects as a team? Where one person does all the work and the others also take credit.
Yeah, very good.
Most definitely. It was like that. But Heinrich, you and I chatted midweek about this particular feat of Ajaz Patel. And we discussed about what you felt as someone who has worked with him from a coaching standpoint. And what were your emotions like when you saw him pick that 10th wicket?
Just very, very happy for him. I guess, there's so much hard work that's gone in, and so much perseverance, so much grit over a period of time. To reference back that he was the leading wicket taker in the domestic competition for 3 years in a row before he made his debut for New Zealand. Doesn't really play Test cricket, unfortunately, in New Zealand with the composition of the side, the conditions, obviously. But in the same breath, I think I've referenced this previously too, and in a couple of comments, he's found ways to take wickets at domestic level. And there's some decent players that are coming through the domestic setup when you think about how well New Zealand cricket's done across formats over the last couple of years. So, he's improved as a bowler. I mean, he's the third person in the history of our wonderful game to pick up all 10 wickets, and you still can't get the man of the match at the end of it. So it's a serious feat. But I guess, just really excited for him to go out there and show, the caliber of bowler that he is. And hopefully, I've mentioned this the other day too, hopefully this is sort of, giving the New Zealand selectors something to think about, especially when we play over here. He can fulfill a role. Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a different role, but it'll give him confidence. It'll give him some cohesion from an input point of view when we play in New Zealand. So when we go on tour and he becomes the number one threat option, that he actually feels part of the side and feels like he's got a real role to play through being a member of that team consistently.
Yeah, Yeah, but in a game where we saw spider references as far as the camera was concerned, it was quite the homecoming for Ajaz Patel, to put it mildly. But Abhishek, we sort of talk about these things, that it's tough for the opposition to come here in India and produce the kind of performances to beat India at home. But this was probably all Ajaz could have done on day one and day two to put them in a good position. 325 perhaps was just a little bit more, maybe, from chasing point of view and making a
Yes,
lead,
but
taking a lead from there.
325 was too much, I suppose. But more importantly, 62 was too little, too less. I mean
Yeah,
that. I mean, New Zealand are a better batting side than that. There's no doubt about this. We saw that in
definitely.
Kanpur. We saw that in Kanpur twice. I mean,
Yeah,
that was just not that was just subpar batting. It was
yeah,
superb bowling to begin with.
yeah,
But New Zealand are a better side than that, honestly.
yeah. I
And
read it somewhere on Twitter, and I was confused, when I read, because someone said that Ajaz Patel's bowling in the first innings sort of shadows aside the fact how other bowlers did in that first innings. And I said to myself, that's how you pick 10 wickets, right? I mean, if others would have bowled well, how could he have picked 10 wickets in that first innings?
yeah, I mean, see, Ajaz, it is going to be an interesting career for him because even after this, he is not assured of a spot at home. If New
Yeah,
Zealand prepare a green top, Ajaz won't get a match. But I remember this 2002 3, end of 2002, India toured New Zealand for a two-test series. And New Zealand rightly prepared two green pitches, absolute green pitches. There were two low-scoring matches. Daniel Vettori played in both matches and did not bowl a single ball. Two test matches. So Ajaz may play two matches and not bowl a single ball. That may happen
yeah,
because, and if it's see it if Bangladesh tour New Zealand, and if Shakib seems unlikely, Tamim seems unlikely, Mahmudullah is not there anymore, so the fast bowlers will do their job even before Ajaz is needed. That may happen. I mean, and this may be an ongoing trend. And he may not be needed at home at all. And despite that, he would be delivering. He will be delivering whenever New Zealand tours the subcontinent. So it
yeah.
is going to be a peculiar career for him, just like Akshar Patel.
Oh, yeah.
He
Oh,
will
yeah.
get picked only. He will get picked only if India play in India because overseas India will never play three spinners.
Well, if
Must be.
Ravichandran
It must
Ashwin
be if
can't
your name
feature.
is. Must be if your name is A Patel. That's what happens to you.
Yeah.
You get put in these certain boxes, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm gonna ask my producer to prepare that photo, that brilliant photo that featured yesterday on social media. Did quite a few rounds, quite a few captions to go with it as well. We're gonna play a small game probably at the end, thinking of the best caption for that particular image. But before that, if we are to talk about Ejaz particularly, Heinrich, we have discussed how New Zealand have quality spinners in their team and are producing a sort of an alternate bowling attack, to deal with the batters overseas. Do you think it's time, probably, it's easier for us to think and talk about these things, but do you think it's probably a move which New Zealand will prefer to create pitches at home wherein the spinners can be really more handy as far as day 4 and day 5 action is concerned?
Look, I think there's a lot of discussion going on within the structures in New Zealand cricket, especially to try and find ways to aid our development against, all against spin, but also playing on different conditions. We've mooted the suggestions around playing the last two rounds of our domestic competition, which is around the end of March, start of April, on used surfaces, which, number one, will allow the spinners to actually learn how to bowl on something that assists, but also it allows the batters, to figure out what it means to actually play Test cricket on a surface that's not just throwing your hands through the line of the ball and it's an easy couple of runs. I guess to go back to your comments earlier on, I read quite a few things from a batting point of view where there was mention made that, we want to try and put people under pressure. The spinners, we can't let's make them bowl to us. But I think if you reverse it, the Indian batters are so good at making people come back for third, fourth, fifth, sixth spells, and that's when they wear them down to actually accumulate their runs. And I think, from a New Zealand point of view, we've become a little bit one-dimensional. We're going to try and put people under pressure. Even if you hit a spinner for a 6 and a 6 and he gets you out after the third attempt, he only averages 12. He'll be the best, spin bowler in the history of the game. So I guess it's if we can keep developing ways to get our players in this country accustomed to actually going and finding methods and ways to figure out what it means to score runs on different surfaces. Rightfully so, as we've mentioned, when Bangladesh comes here over Christmas, New Year's now, they'll rock up to some green surfaces, and it'll be totally different again what we've seen over the last 2 tests. And I guess that's the intriguing bit of preparing home advantage whenever you play people around the world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, now let's talk about, since you have mentioned how the Indian batters went by in their approach of facing New Zealand, let's talk about a certain Mayank Agarwal, shall we? Brilliantly. I mean, there were two sides to his play, and we've always known that Mayank Agarwal is sort of a dependable opener as far as T20 format is concerned. He'll go for his shots no matter what, and he did that against Ajaz as well in that first innings. You saw there were moments where he was trying to defend and sort of play through the spells, but when it came to playing those shots, he did that, and boy, he did that. That was brilliant in that first and second innings. What are your thoughts, gentlemen, on his batting? And he is also facing a dilemma as far as that upcoming tour is concerned. Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul return. How is India going to manage him is going to be a key question, isn't it?
Yeah, see, Mayank could hit sixes. We saw that 2 years ago in the home series against South Africa and Bangladesh. Because the only person I remember hitting, only Indian I remember hitting sixes so cleanly against spin was Navjot Sidhu. He did exactly the same. His footwork, the straight six hitting, exactly the same against both Murli and Warne. So Mayank brings shades of that. And regarding whether I don't think Mayank is a competition for Rohit or Rahul. Those slots are sort of decided. But what happened? May I remind you, in Brisbane earlier this year, India were basically trying to accumulate a ship of Theseus kind of 11. So they had lost everyone basically, and they had extra openers, but not enough middle order batters. So they plugged Mayank in the middle order at 5.
Yeah.
So that is what they may try again, which is sort of unusual, which is sort of counterintuitive, because Rohit is essentially a number 5 batter and Mayank is essentially an opener. But on that tour, India did the reverse. India won in Brisbane, that's for sure. But they may try doing that again if Rahane does not recover from his niggle.
Yeah, it was probably more of utilizing Rohit Sharma as a test opener rather than keeping Mayank as a 5. It was more of that call.
Yes.
But Heinrich, it's a sweet problem to have, isn't it? When your middle order is sort of not in the best of positions. We've seen that with Ajinkya Rahane. A lot of questions being raised for Cheteshwar Pujara as well. Probably a few for Virat Kohli, but it's a sweet problem to have when you have someone like a Shreyas Iyer in his debut series playing that sort of a debut test match, Mayank Agarwal making a comeback, and that KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma are going to be there.
Yeah, it's a great position to be in, and like Abby's just mentioned, the building of the foundation and the depth of player now has happened over a period of time, and you've got people consistently stepping into roles now and scoring runs. And you think about Shreyas Iyer, made his debut, scored 100. Another 150 from an Agarwal. All of a sudden, people that thought they were potentially dead certainties to play a lot of Test cricket are now making sure that they do the extra work to score runs and make sure they get going. So that's a great position to be in. As a coach, sometimes you get in a position where you wonder who's the next guy that's going to come through. And then at other stages, you're going to have 5, 6 or 7 guys, but only 4 of them can play. So look, India's in that position at the moment. It's a great position. It's a tough position to be in for Rahul Dravid, but it's a great position to be in.
Yeah, and also let's not forget Hanuma Vihari. All eyes will be on him today. He's playing against
Yeah.
South
He scored
Africa
runs in
A.
that South Africa. Yeah, he scored runs in the first innings, didn't he? Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's going to be something how India are going to deal with all these selection issues in that three test match series in South Africa. But let's talk about New Zealand. Coming back to New Zealand's batting, bit of a question there, but I don't think it's something that necessarily is going to bother Kane Williamson. Ross Taylor throughout the series, not picking up that sort of a pace, in his last few, probably his last series away from home, many are saying. But how do you see to replace someone like him who's contributed so much in that middle order over the years? How do you see a replacement for him?
It's not. I guess at this stage, it's not necessarily just the replacement piece because there's quite a few things that are happening on the ground at the moment. So Kane Williamson potentially has got to get an operation to fix that tendon. Devon Conway is coming back. Ross Taylor has not scored a lot of runs. He's only scored 250s. Passed 50 twice in the last 28 innings that he's had in Test cricket. So he's obviously not played a lot of cricket this year. He was stuck in Hamilton too through a lockdown, so he hasn't had the preparation that he needed. So there's quite a few bits and bobs movement around the whole experience that New Zealand's built up in the top order batting front. And I guess that's also, shifted a little bit of that balance towards a Tom Latham all of a sudden, having to carry a way more of a burden. And he sort of looked out of character in the second test, didn't he? So I guess it's going to create some opportunities. We saw what's the guy batting at 3, Mitchell, scoring some runs, but I guess, even in first-class cricket and domestic first-class cricket, he was always batting at 4 and 5. He hasn't really batted up the order, so maybe they missed a chance by having someone like a Glenn Phillips who batted at 3 a year or so ago and made his debut in Australia, got 50 at the SCG. So have they missed a trick there? Will he be potentially looked at as a replacement for Kane or for Ross when you have Devon Conway on the back end for the home summer? So there's quite a few questions that I guess the New Zealand selectors will have in front of them. None more so than how do we fit Ajaz Patel into it. So I guess it's always it's another situation for them to work through.
Yeah. We talk about India having that problem to go ahead and prepare a team for the next T20 World Cup. It's probably the same for New Zealand when you have those 3 formats lined up and you have a 50-over World Cup coming in 2 years' time. You have a World Test Championship final that is going to come in 2023, and then your T20 World Cup. It's going to take some thinking to segregate players for specific roles in specific formats.
I guess the challenge for New Zealand cricket moving forward is, you think we've over a period of time had 3 or 4 real generational players, Southee, Bolt, Williamson, Taylor. They would, at their prime, would have made any side in the world. So that's going to be their biggest challenge. And I guess if you look around the world game at the moment, the big senior players all compete with each other. But it's when your guys who are coming into international cricket, your Devon Conway came in, had an impact. Carl Jamieson came in, had an impact. Agarwal comes in, has an impact. I guess when those next in line players are coming in and consistently performing, that's when your team really steps up and be consistent at that top level.
Yeah. Right. We have talked about a spinner who achieved the feat in world cricket. Let's talk about another spinner who has been there for some time now and has been doing good for India in this format, across formats at least. And his 9th Man of the Series award, Ravichandran Ashwin, I think finds it pretty easy to play Test cricket, and we find it rather hard to not praise him on a regular basis because a player like him don't get too often. Abhishek, what's your thought
he
on?
seemed to be bowling unplayable balls at will, almost at will. And yet, remember, he may not play the next Test match. He may not.
Oh,
be
yes.
How?
That's just fascinating. And someone might write a thesis or a book on that.
If South Africa prepare a green top, then India will go in with 4 fast bowlers. There's no doubt about this.
They're rubbing their hands right now, aren't they? Cricket South Africa. Let's make Ravichandran Ashwin not play.
South Africa are having words with Dwan Olivier. So if that happens, they may go in with Rabada, Nokia, Olivier, maybe Ngidi, or someone. I mean, they will try to eliminate India's spin completely. So they'll prepare
But
that
there
green
you
top.
go. Before coming back to Ashwin, and we'll talk about him now. There you go. That's a problem for the overseas teams now. If they prepare a top that is pace assisting, it's not like India are going to be blank and clueless going. They're going to have their own
Nope.
paces.
Nope.
Yeah, it's going to be something. But yeah, let's talk about Ashwin, shall we? I mean, he does it with the bat, does it with the ball. His fielding over the years has improved, and he's worked really hard on his fitness as well over the last 4 years or so. And we've seen a different Ashwin emerge, who's always ready to perform. He got the T20 chances in the World Cup, played in the series as well, and then to pick those couple of wickets in almost every games that we saw. What's your thought on how he should be managed in the years to come, Hendrik?
Well, I guess he's the only guy that we've seen so far that try and review a ball, So, I mean, it tells you a bit about the man. There's a lot of confidence there, which is great.
Yeah, yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I think the flip side to it is as soon as there's a left-hander batting, left-handers are trying to just get to the other side because, I think they all find it pretty tough, and not picking what he bowls. So whether it's that slider, whether it's the big one that turns, or whether it's his carom, I guess there's a lot of things that you got to. And then he does it at a really good pace too. He gets people stuck on the crease. I think it's things we've mentioned and seen over periods of time that you've got to be really decisive, and people are still trying to pick him off the surface, and by then it's too late. And he's shown that, and he's shown that over series after series after series against different batters. It's not just that he enjoys bowling against New Zealand or he enjoys bowling against Bangladesh. He's taken wickets on a consistent basis against everyone. He puts everyone under pressure. And Abby, as the point we've made earlier, it's unbelievable to think that in the next test he's potentially not playing. When you think about his record, when you think about how he goes about his business, you ask him to play a different role, he'll be able to do that. He's canny enough operator to do that. So it's interesting how the whole Moneyball situation is almost sometimes overriding. We got to take the ball away from this guy, or we got to, and it sometimes defeats the purpose of the player being able to adapt to what's in front of him, and not always just play what's the easy way or the supposed easy way from a numbers perspective.
Yeah, I mean, also, but that may happen, right? I mean, India may end up, if they pick a spinner, they may end up not bowling him at all if it's a green top. I mean, that we have, as I mentioned, the Vettori incident. So I mean, if it's a pitch where he doesn't get to bowl at all, so why pick him? Rather play the extra batter.
Yeah, it's something really fascinating because Abhishek, I think it was last January after that Australia tour, where we were talking about how he's worked on bowling overseas and he produced some brilliant spells in Australia as well. But if a player does work that hard to get
If
prepped up for an overseas tour and is not given the chance,
his
then
overseas numbers do not look great, but his overseas numbers are actually quite impressive since his county stints. So I
yeah,
believe that was where he started picking up. And his overseas,
did well in
I
that
mean,
county game in England as well. Did well in that county
yes,
game
yes,
in
yes,
England as well.
yes,
Didn't play a
yes, yes.
single test match then.
No,
Yeah.
but because India were playing one spinner, and that was Jadeja, and that was probably because he was.
Better
He
batter.
has he I think Jadeja averages over
Overseas. Yeah.
40 over the past 2 years, and Jadeja is. I mean, we often forget how good a bowler Jadeja is. I,
Even in that
that is
Lord's Test,
something.
I
Yes,
believe it
yes,
was
yes.
in the final innings. He picked a couple of wickets. Was a crucial spell from him as well.
And I saw some. I remember some experimentation. So Jadeja, I think, in India played a tour match against a combined county side, and Jadeja batted at 4 in one of the innings and 5 in one of the innings, and then in a test match, I think at the Oval, it was Jadeja batted at 5. Just the India, I think above Rahane or something. The India pushed Jadeja up the order just to add a left-hander to the mix, because India's top order is entirely right-hander based. So it was not a random decision. They were using Jadeja in various roles. And you remember Kohli mentioned when he picked Jadeja before for the Oval Test match that he wants Jadeja to bowl outside the rough of the right-hander and to turn the ball into the left-hander from the same rough. And Jadeja did exactly that in the fourth innings. So it was not a random selection, and India could not go in with two spinners. So I mean, I would really love to see both of them play together.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if conditions are going to be helpful, they will. But let's talk about how the whole series can be seen in terms of being just a two-match test series. We've talked about this before. And going forward, uh, is there a way that New Zealand now, when they play someone like India at home, or probably Australia or England, more so India, do we get to see a five-test match series after all? Because it's been long
Yes,
since
please,
these two played a
please,
five-test match series. Are
please,
there any
please, please.
talks of such magnitude going in New Zealand as well?
I think everyone's is pushing harder and harder for at least three test series as the starting off point. I mean, it would have been so fascinating if there was a third test in this series because, you think
Yeah,
New Zealand competed really well in that first test. Got a little bit lucky to get to where they got to, but, that's credit's due. Then in the second test, okay, so you get outplayed. So what's the bounce back ability now? You've got some world-class players in there, and then you've got some players in there that's shown that they've got enough to potentially play for a period of time and have some successful careers. So I guess that's all the questions that hopefully over the series that are coming up in time, especially the New Zealand and Indian rivalry that's now been built up since the World Test Championship. And, this series was a nice little, bring us sort of back onto same keel now. So like Abby said, we gotta watch the gold medal match, apparently the third and fourth place side over the next couple of days. So let's hope we can get a lot more cricket going between our two countries. But start off with three match series, and then if we can keep building on that, that'll be fantastic because it won't disappoint. We've seen that again in this last series.
yeah.
Yes, the Ashes
I
seemed
mean,
so anticlimactic after the India-New Zealand series. I mean, in what? I mean, you talk about Test cricket being the ultimate format. You are giving two Test matches to the top two sides and five to the next two. It makes no sense. I mean, instead of playing four or five Test matches against India or against Australia or England, I would love to see India play five Test matches against New Zealand. They're a far better side. England and Australia
yeah,
can't even win at home.
yeah. Well, for all our for all our viewers right now, if you want to read more on that, there's a brilliant editorial piece written from Abhishek Mukherjee, none other than Abhishek Mukherjee, about how this whole thing has played out and what it means for Test cricket. But then again, here we are. 1-0, series is over. We talked about New Zealand as a challenge. And they are the team you thought would really challenge India in India. But it's becoming, more of a regular feat here. Teams coming in to play in India, they of course get the odd match where England, we saw that with England in Chennai, that they won that first test match and then lost the other three. We've seen this happen before, whether or not India are in sort of troublesome situations, they come back, and at home it's becoming more and more difficult to beat them.
No,
How does this pan out, Abhishek? I mean, which
one
team
thing,
do we
one
expect
thing,
now?
one thing. Remember, Australia won a Test match in Pune in 2017.
Yeah,
England
2017. Yeah,
won one in Chennai, and New Zealand. But the difference is, Australia and England had both won the toss, batted first. They got the best
yeah,
of the pitches. New Zealand batted last and still saved the match in Kanpur.
yeah. That was a
And that is not
pretty big
something we
result.
have seen touring sides do in India. I think that was. I mean, New Zealand played tremendous cricket in Kanpur. Ajaz Patel, his feat in Bombay will probably overshadow the team effort in Kanpur, but I think the Kanpur Test match should be talked about more. Only 22 times in history has a Test match been saved by the last pair.
Yeah.
You have to remember this. And the last time this happened was 7 years ago. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, we need to discuss this. The Kanpur Test match needs to be talked about more, especially from a New Zealand point of view. But I think it will be all drowned by the Ashes over the next couple of months.
Do you believe one of the teams playing in the Ashes who will come India later in this World Test Championship cycle are going to be a big challenge as New Zealand was in
No,
this series?
no.
Well, there you have. I wanted that answer, by the way. It looks spicy. We have a nice 30-second snippet right there. But yes, let's have a look at the World Test Championship points table. There you go. Our producer is very much reading minds here. You have Sri Lanka on top right now, alongside Pakistan. India is at third. England, of course, are going to play Australia. The series hasn't begun, which is why Australia are not featuring in the table yet. West Indies, well, they are there on fifth position, and New Zealand lagging at sixth as of now. Bangladesh, well,
Pakistan will lose
they
some
are at
points now.
seventh.
This Test match is getting washed out, and Pakistan will lose some points after this draw. So,
Yeah. It changes a lot. We've seen that. We saw it change a lot in the last, 7 to 8 games in the last WTC cycle. So
yes.
it's going to change a lot by the time 2023 arrives. And we certainly hope for a repeat, Heinrich. I've said this often and often in the last 4 months that, the next time India face New Zealand in an ICC event, I'll have the chance to throw some banter,
What?
but I'm
Wait,
still waiting for that opportunity.
regarding the table, Australia have not played yet, right?
Yeah,
A
they
Test
haven't
match.
played it. Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
They haven't.
Yeah.
In this World Test Championship cycle, they haven't. And as
Australia
promised,
touring India.
yeah, they'll tour in this World Test Championship cycle.
Okay, that's news. Australia have not toured for Test matches in since the 2019 Ashes. That's 2.5 years. They have left Australia to
Yeah,
play limited overs cricket, but not Test cricket.
yeah. Hmm.
I hope the tour happens.
Well, there's a lot Indian fans will hope as far as playing Australia at home is concerned, because the last series, the last two Test matches were certainly spicy. Yeah, we'll talk about that on a separate occasion. But as promised to our audience, we are going to talk about that image. We are going to talk about how our two guests here caption this one. Come on, gents, throw in your best game here. What do you want to caption this image? Heinrich, we'll go with you.
Yeah, I saw it doing the rounds yesterday, and look, I think the first thing that sort of springs to mind is, again, straight after the match yesterday, we obviously had Ajaz and Rachi coming doing the post match interview, and again, my wife made the beautiful comment saying that we've seen both teams talk now, and we've only seen Indians talk. So I guess it's becoming more of a thing when New Zealand play India now. That there's it seems to be the trend that a Patel or a session or a ration and a session combined to do some magical stuff. So look, it's an exciting time. I think Rashin's got a real future ahead of him, as do both those. Ajaz Patel's obviously shown that he's got some real skill. If he keeps getting opportunity, he'll get better. And look, Jadeja, we've seen over periods of time, canny and classy operator.
Yeah. Heinrich has given a really heartwarming answer here. Abhishek, I'll let you go with some caption you have in your head for this particular image. We've seen a lot of them.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it doesn't seem like a touring side. I pointed out that one of them, I mean, they were just playing at home, which is why they did so well.
Yeah.
All four of them, they're locals.
Yeah.
I mean,
The homeboys.
homeboys.
Yeah, the homeboys. Okay, before Heinrich is probably in that raging mood, I'll just give the caption myself. I thought of one. And if our producer can just show it, I think it'll sound better as we see the image and as I talk about it. Yes. Okay. So, couples, when they get patch t-shirts in college.
Something I would like to tell you. They're all Gujaratis, right? And Gujarat, the state of Gujarat, has A very understated contribution to Indian cricket. I mean, the first mention of cricket in India was in Cambay, in Gujarat. The first Indian to ever become an international star was from Gujarat, Ranji. The first Indian, for a long time, Jasu Patel held both the best innings and match figures for India. Jasu Patel was one of the two first Indian cricketers to be given a Padma Award, and so on. I mean, so yeah, I mean, they're still doing it.
Yep. And, and they're doing it in New Zealand jersey as well.
Now,
That's how. That's how.
Now Gujarat is contributing to New Zealand cricket as well. But that we saw with the first ball of the 1992 World Cup when Deepak Patel
Yeah,
started an ODI as an off spinner.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
nothing
exactly.
new.
Yep. We've had nice bit of history revision as well here. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for that. But that's it, gents. That's our journey in Cricket News Live for this India versus New Zealand series. It was so fun to join you two and chat cricket, and we certainly hope we get the opportunity soon enough. As far as a four-match or a five-match Test series is concerned, that'll be lovely. Thank you so much, Heinrich. And I know it's beyond your sleep time now. We'll let you go now. Finally, thank you so much, Abhishek, and thank you so much to our audience for joining us. That's it from us at Cricket News Live. Stay tuned to Cricket News.